Welcome to Life by Design, episode 368.
Welcome to Life by Design. I'm your host, Dr. Kresimir Jug. I'm not joined by my brother from another mother, Dr. Jamie Richards. I said that really fast. I'm not joined with Jamie. It's myself and my wife, Dr. Rochelle, who are away this week, so I'm recording another one solo. But together, along with Mike, we are creators of Life by Design with many locations worldwide. Each week, we, or in this case, I, discuss the principles and the purpose of Life by Design. And on today's episode, we're talking, I'm not sure if we're going to make this a two-parter or a one-parter. It depends. I really wanted to squeeze it all into one episode, but I just think that there's too much to talk about. So we'll see whether Jamie and I will do one together, but it's going to be maybe part one of making 2020, new decade, I can't believe that, the best year that you've ever had. And if you check the show notes, I want you to go to lifebydesign.com/show notes, and you'll see all the notes there. I have a quote from Tony Robbins, and I believe this is really at the heart of what it is that we're doing. It says the path to success is to take massive, determined actions. Now, I like that quote, and there's two key words in that sentence that we need to focus on. And the first one is determined, and the second one is actioned. And I like determined because in this context, it actually has two meanings, and I like both of them. The first meaning of determined is that you've already thought about it, right? Like you're taking an action that you've thought about the purpose of. So you've determined the outcome that you would like to get from taking this action. And the second meaning, determined, means that you are passionate or committed to making this action work. I like both of those. I also like the term action because it involves doing something. And we've all been there when it comes time to, it's January the 1st, and if you're like me, you've had at least in the past, a less than healthy December in terms of eating and goaling, eating and achieving your goals. There's lots of time to visit with people, family time, and instead of just taking the time to enjoy that this is the time of year when that happens and ridding ourselves of any stress or anxiety, no, we stress about the future. Right, so that's typically how it goes, and then you're sitting around and you're like, okay, well, starting December or January the 1st, this is what I'm going to do, and you've gone through this intellectual. You've gone through it intellectually, and it's really simple to go through it intellectually. It's really simple to think, well, I want to lose weight, or I want to achieve financial independence, or I'm finally going to launch that business that I was always dreaming of. It gets much tougher, especially as an adult, when you already have a life and responsibilities that are waiting for you, and now you want to redirect or change the course of your life, and you're not able to necessarily jettison some of those responsibilities. So how do we do it? And what I just explained is the reason that most of us, and this is definitely still to this day, there's many times when I fail at this. It's challenging. And there's also, that time when you think something sounds great, and then when you get to actually pursuing it, you realize that it might not be, everything that you thought it was going to be. So the reason that I'm telling you all this is this requires a lot for most of us, right? And we all know somebody who is absolutely clear on what it is that they want to do with their life. And truth be told, part of me has always been, for the right reasons, envious of this, because it would just be nice to know clearly what it is that I should be doing with my life, right? The best example I can give you of this in popular culture is a businessman, entrepreneur. I know he would never want to label himself as a motivational speaker, but his name is Gary Vaynerchuk, Gary V online. And he's, it's just excellent to hear him speak because he is so clear on what it is that he wants to achieve. And there's people in my life that I know that are just absolutely clear, and and it's just wonderful to watch them operate from that place when they know what's up. It's almost refreshing to be around somebody who's so driven. Now, for the rest of us, things get a little bit more complicated. We're unclear. We haven't tasted, maybe if you're young, you haven't tasted what that thing is. So I want to go through and I'm just bringing up my notes, so please forgive me. There's 5 categories or, general categories or general ideas. I can't remember what we call them in Think by Design right now. I should really remember. I just have a horrible memory. But there's 5 categories and there's 5 things that you need in order to make this successful in your life. And today's episode, I'm going to be covering these 5 things. And like I said, if I think that we need another episode at the end of this, then that's what part 2 is going to be. But for right now, the 5 things that I'm going to be speaking about for the rest of the episode are philosophy, or as I like to call it because I think it makes better sense, is a sense of life, your self-esteem, your vision, your purpose, and your action plan. Now, I love, when it comes to number 1, and here's what we're going to be talking about for the next little bit. So number 1 is philosophy, or sense of life. So the reason that we had philosophy, I wrote this, and we talked about this a lot in the Think by Design book. Philosophy is your understanding of human nature and of life and of your involvement, or humans' involvement in the universe. And now, you can't escape the fact, I know that sounds really broad and abstract, but I'll try my best not to speak too long on this because I know it can get really boring. I love Ayn Rand's quote on the idea that we all have a philosophy. It's unfortunate that in the modern age, most of us don't have a clear, concise, congruent philosophy. Most of us, because of our upbringings, because of our, teachers, preachers, parents, all of us that have, all the people that have influenced our thinking and our minds, most of us have accumulated what she calls a junk heap. Or a couple things from here and a couple things from there and a couple things from here. And that's one of the reasons why the world is in such a confused place, is because there's a lot of inconsistencies in people's thinking. We just recently did a podcast on this, Jamie and I, on why people can't think. So the reason I like to say a sense of life is because the prerequisite to your success in your life is having a deep down belief, or philosophy, if you want to say it, that success is possible, right? That your achievement, if the belief and the understanding that if you work hard and you do the right things, eventually over time, what you want, you can actually achieve. And if you don't have this, right? If you don't have this sense of life or this philosophy of I can win, I can achieve things that I want, you're always going to be undercutting and sabotaging yourself, right? So if you hear me say these words and your immediate emotional reaction to that is positive, then chances are you have it. But if you look throughout your life, and there's I'm lacking on what it's called, but there's people who are always waiting for the other shoe to drop. They always think that their efforts are in vain. This, the modern day skeptic doesn't even think that reality might exist, right? And I'm not judging your beliefs or what you think. What I am telling you is you need to look inside, and there's 2 different conversations to have with yourself. Conversation number 1 is what you actually believe. And conversation number 2 is what you'd like to believe. And if you'd like to change your sense of life, I don't even necessarily know if that's possible, to be honest. This takes a lot of work, right? If you just have this deep down, sense of something bad is always going to happen, or my happiness, I don't deserve happiness, or whatever it is, it'll take a lot of work to change that. And again, I don't mean to sound pessimistic. It's hard to change these deep-seated beliefs because these have been picked up kind of along the way, like I mentioned. So that's number 1. Number 2 is self-esteem. You have to believe in yourself. You have to have confidence that you are able to meet the basic requirements of human life, and you have to believe that happiness is you deserve happiness, and you're able to achieve it. Now, somebody just sent me a really interesting, and I didn't get the whole context of it. So if you've seen the whole lecture, please forgive me if I'm missing the context. But they sent me a lecture on Jordan Peterson, speaking about how he doesn't believe in self-esteem, and what I gathered from him is the idea that when in today's time, when we think about or when we talk about self-esteem, we tend to do it in a vacuum, right? When I say, or when we say at Life by Design self-esteem, we mean your ability to deal with actual reality, right? I don't mean pumping your mind full of these ideas about how incredible you are or how awesome you are that are completely devoid of reality. And I think that's what we see, I think that's kind of what gets lumped into self-esteem nowadays, by just telling a kid that they're awesome, or, they did such a good job when they didn't do any of those things. I'm saying in order for you to have high self-esteem, number 1, it's a requirement. And number 2, the way that you're going to get really high self-esteem is to always measure yourself against what's actually happening, right? And if you've heard any of the podcasts that we've done in the past on self-esteem, you've heard this idea come up that we're always measuring ourselves against the standard, right? If you know what the standard is, and then you're measuring yourself against the standard, and as time goes by, you're getting closer and closer to meeting the standard, or now you're starting to exceed the standard, that's where genuine self-esteem comes from, because you're not living in a vacuum, right? I'm not telling myself that I'm an NHL caliber hockey player when I can barely skate or take a slap shot, right? That would just be completely devoid of reality. But nonetheless, and this is the last kind of abstract one that's out there. And by the way, these are abstract, but that doesn't make them less important for you to get a good handle on them, right? Like, these are the underlying kind of roots of this whole thing. And unless you have a good sense of life or philosophy and good real self-esteem, then the other 3 that I'm going to mention that are going to be very tangible are going to be next to impossible to actually achieve. So number 3 is a vision. You need to know what you actually want. What do you want for your life? What goals do you want for yourself? Where do you see yourself? What are what's the purpose of your life going to be? And I mentioned Gary Vaynerchuk, and again, this is one of the things that he's excellent because he has the first 2 things figured out. His vision, what he keeps talking about, is he's going to buy the New York Jets, and he's going to win 7 Super Bowls, and he's going to retire. Like, that's, and then everything else becomes a play to make that happen in his life. So again, the point is, I don't know what you want, but you have to know what you want. You're the one that has to be clear on what it is your vision is and what it is that you want for your life. Now, if you're like me and you're not necessarily sure of what your vision is in all aspects of your life, what you need to do, and this is going to be much easier if you're a young person listening to this, is you need to start trying stuff. All right, like, how do you know what your favorite food is if you've only ate, you can tell I have pizza and burgers on my mind, but if you've only ever eaten pizza and burgers your whole life, there's a whole lot of other stuff out there. So if you're unclear, maybe the action step for 2020, the first one, is to try a whole bunch of new things. Right? Maybe you're a guitar player, you just never played guitar. Maybe you like cooking and you've never cooked a meal. Maybe you like dancing. Maybe you like investing in stocks. Maybe you like real estate. The point is, if you haven't tried and if you're not pursuing some of these things, even in fun, how do you know what the vision is going to be? But you need a vision, right? You need to know where you're going to end up, because if you're lacking the vision, then unfortunately you're going to be like most people. You're just kind of float day to day. After you have your vision, you need your purpose. And your purpose is your why, right? So it's interesting when you start thinking about why are you pursuing the things that you're pursuing, right? Like, what's your motivating factor? Why do you want to achieve the vision that you say that you want so bad? And again, a lot of funny stuff will happen when you start to organize these things in your mind, because inevitably you're going to pick a vision that sounds great. You think you're motivated by it, but then when you start to hit the obstacles, which inevitably will come with whatever vision you pursue, right? No matter what you want to do, there's going to be real problems that show up. And it's your motivation or your purpose that'll help get you through those problems. If the motivation is great enough, then no matter what obstacle you hit, eventually you'll be able to work through it and you'll keep going. And if the obstacle that you hit is too great for you to consider, right, then maybe your purpose wasn't strong enough, or your vision just wasn't clear enough and it wasn't the right thing. And both of those are fine. I'm just saying you will need a purpose. No matter what you select, there's going to be obstacles that come along the way. And the last one, as we wrap things up, is an action plan. So an action plan. Now you have your vision. Now you have your purpose. You're clear on your philosophy. You have a good sense of life. You have good self-esteem. You're confident in yourself. But now what is it that you actually have to do day in and day out to get this thing done? Which takes us full circle to Anthony Robbins, right? To massive, determined actions. And this is when the fun actually starts, right? And a lot of us start here, right? A lot of us start with, well, I want to lose, it's January the 1st, I want to lose weight. So I'm going to go to the gym, and that's about it. But that's not a good action plan, because I hate to break it to you, here's what's going to happen. So let's stick with the weight loss one, because that's a big goal for a lot of people in January. So now you want to lose weight. Okay, well, how do you lose weight? Well, you go to the gym and you start eating better. Okay, great. So we're going to go to the gym. Great. When are you going to go to the gym? Who's going to write your programming? What if you don't feel good that day? Who's going to watch the kids? What if you get tired? Right? And these are all things that are real barriers to you joining the gym, or to anybody who's new to joining the gym. And because we don't actually have a good strategy for figuring these things out, we meet these obstacles, and either because our vision wasn't clear enough or because our purpose wasn't great enough, we don't continue, and then things fall apart. And this is what happens year in and year out. So my point, and let me just recap the 5 things. Number 1 is philosophy, or as I like to call it, sense of life. Number 2 is self-esteem. Number 3 is vision. Number 4 is purpose. And number 5 is action plan. Those are the 5 categories that you need. Of course, this is all what Think by Design, our program that we created, is all about. So if you go to the show notes page, you can find the ebook there, which is free, and you can join the free 30-day challenge. And if you need a little bit more insight to these things. Either way, I hope that helps. Have a great holiday season. We'll talk. Don't worry, we'll talk again next week. And join the drive to 1 million families worldwide living life by design.